Hello friends, welcome to my channel. This is Anirban and today's topic of the day is withholding tax. So today we are going to talk about withholding tax and we are going to show you in SAP how to process a invoice or how to process a payment we're considering or in complying with the withholding tax requirement. Now, before we go to SAP, let's try to understand what is withholding tax. So I will open my notes. So these are the few entries that actually happen in the backend when we process withholding tax in SAP. Withholding tax in withholding tax there are two parties. One is the deductor and the another is a deductee. So this is deductor, another is deductee, right? So and deductor is actually the payer and the other person is the deductee is a payee. So what happens is that when the payer of rent probably pays an amount to the payee. So when the payer is a company and they pays rent to payee, then the person should be hold back some amount from the amount of the rent that is paid to the payee in the form of a withholding tax, and the tax eventually the payee renders to the government. And he this is all about withholding tax. There are several other complication, but this is a vanilla explanation of withholding tax. So when a payer pays an amount to the payee, he withholds some amount in the form of the tax which he subsequently submits to the government, and there is a certificate that he gives to the payee, which the payee uses to claim tax benefits, because that amount is already deducted from his revenue, right? So the same thing if for a salaried person, if whosoever is working in an organization, or organization, when they renders salary to us, they deduct a TDS from our salary, and then they furnishes us form 16. So that helps us to file our return and then we get the tax benefit. So this is also a withholding form of a withholding tax in case of salary. Now, what are the journal entries here? The journal entries is when we are posting, then say for instance for professional technical services or expenses, suppose the total amount is 50,000. So we are actually rendering 45,000 and holding back this 5,000. So professional or technical services account debit 50,000, to vendor 45,000, and to TDS account 5,000. Now when we are making the payment, we are actually making 45,000. So vendor account debit 45,000, to bank 45,000, and then eventually we render this amount to the bank, right? So this is a brief overview about TDS, and then with this background we will go to SAP. Now, as I mentioned before, like all my videos, I would be only focusing on the end user aspect of any process, and in this video we are only going to capture the SAP end user portion of the how to process a withholding tax. As mentioned before, that we can give effect of withholding tax during posting of invoice posting, or invoice payment, right? So we can give effect to invoice posting or invoice payment, right? Either or. So if we are giving to the giving effect to the invoice posting, or we are going to give the withholding effect of withholding tax during the payment, right? Now I have shown this in how to give effect in invoice posting in FB60, and for FB60, which is posting of non-PO invoice, and in a payment it is usually F-58. but for some reason in my SAP it is showing f-53, right? So it's either f-58 or f-53. Okay, I have actually done f-53. Okay, so before I go to SAP, I will also walk you through the various steps of config, including the configuration steps. So if I go here, if you see, this entire 12 series numbers are the steps, configuration steps of withholding tax, which actually happens in the background before we can even start processing invoices with the withholding tax, or processing payments, outgoing payments in with withholding tax, right? So if you see how to read this, this is a serial number, and this is the activity, and this is the T code, and this is the menu path, and this is the activity type. Is it a configuration or is it an end user, right? So this is all end user. So these are all configuration, and this belongs to withholding TDS, right? So these are the are 14 steps that needs to be completed for including the configuration and the end user, which needs to be completed for processing withholding tax in invoice level, or at the invoice level, or at the payment level. But luckily, out of this 14, only 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 four are part of the scope of this video, and the rest 10 steps are actually configuration, which I did for you to give the demo to you guys. So you need not have to bother about the rest of the 10 steps, but only these steps I am going to are within the scope, and that too actually I am not going to again. I have already created a GL account, and I'm already created a vendor master. So I'm going to just show you what are the specification. I'll go to FS00 screen, and I'll go to FK03 screen to show you what are the specification, and what are the special treatment that needs to be done for withholding tax. And I am going to process full FB60, and that is an on-to invoice, and process a vendor payment through F-53, right? So that way our scope for this video would be not as lengthy as if we would have covered the configuration steps, as these videos, this series of videos in my channel is only dedicated to the end users, right? So with this, let's move on to SAP. So this is the SAP logon icon. I hope it opens. Yes. Alright, so here we are in SAP Easy Access screen. So let's go back to the steps. So the first step, I will show you how to create this GL account. So if you go to the blueprint, AP blueprint, this is the GL account that needs to be created, and I named it as TDS on rent 194i. 194i is a section in that is applicable for the Indian tax, and the GL that I have created is 300 103. So I'll go to FS00. So this is my liability. Why? Because I mean I need to pay this to the government. So I have actually deducted this amount from the payee, and I'm going to I have to submit it to the government. So this is a liability for me. So let me see how this GL is configured. So as you see that this is a liability and this is a balance sheet account. I have named it as 194C TDS payable, and then it is in INR, Indian rupees, and then I have actually want to sort this in the form of posting dates. And then this is the field status group. I have already spoken about field status group in my earlier videos. It talks about the status of the field, whether that field is mandatory or optional, or it is suppressed, right? So we have 41 such field status groups. So for this particular GL account, we should select G001. All right. So this is one of the end user steps, and usually it should be done by the R2R team. They should configure this GL and give this and keep this ready for posting of withholding tax invoices. The other step is, special step to configure vendor master. So this is FK01, and we will look into the vendor master by FK03. So I will go to /n, I'll go to the easy access screen, and I'll go to FK03, which will display my vendor. This is my company code BRPL, and I will select the vendor. And why I am like displaying this is that I want to show you what are the special treatment that we need to give to in a vendor account to make it to post withholding tax, or to give the treatment of withholding tax corresponding to this vendor account. So I'm going to get in here, and I'm to the vendor details, and I'm going to scroll till the withholding tax screen. All right, so this is the withholding tax screen. So here if you see that these are the things that we need to enter, and I'll tell you what are these. So this is withholding tax type, and this is withholding tax code, right? So this I2 means exactly, I2 is, if you see, I2 is related to invoice, and P2 is related to payment. Okay, so this I2 is a invoice withholding tax type for invoice, and P2 is withholding tax related to payment. We will be able to see the implication of this I2 and P2 once we start processing an invoice, right? And we want to wish to give an effect of withholding tax at the invoice level, or at the payment level, right? And this is similarly in R1 and R2 are the codes of withholding tax at the invoice level or the payment level. CO is nothing but company. Okay, so this is how the configuration. So there are, like as I mentioned, there are 10 steps to configure all these, so that that will help us to finally post an invoice or process a payment with withholding tax, right? So we have actually looked into this first step, which is create GL, and this is the end user, and out of 4, so this is the first one, and this is the second end user step, which we have just seen FK3 in FK03, that what are the special treatment that we need to give in the vendor master screen to process invoice or process a payment with withholding tax. We've seen about the withholding tax type and withholding tax code, right? So we can give any kind of types and codes, and like we can give the description. So here we have used uh, withholding tax type and code for invoice and payment level. Okay, now moving on to the second last, like FB60. All right, so FB60, I'm going to propose an invoice FB60 with withholding tax. So okay, so let me move to SAP. Yeah, so I'm already in SAP. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to type FB60. I'm going to select my vendor. And then I will mention an amount as say 50,000. Okay, 50,000 an amount, and this I'm going to post the invoice at the WHT level, the WHT at the invoice level, right? And then I'll say rent on land. So what is happening is that I am paying this vendor 50,000 as a rent on land, and as per the income tax, as per the tax structure of India, the rent on land, we should deduct 10% as a tax before we render the money to the payee, which means that the payee should get 45,000 and I should render 5,000 to the government for as a withholding tax, right? So I'm going to select a GL account here. So I have already configured this rent expense here, and then I'm going to put a star here, asterisk here, which will pull the 50,000, and then I will also put a text here. I'll put a plus here, and then I hit enter probably, and then if you see that when the system is giving me a prompt that this vendor is subject to withholding tax, so I go to withholding tax and I'll see that I have actually configured R1 and R2. If you remember that at the vendor level, we have seen R1 and R2, this R1 and R2, right? So this one R1, as we have seen before, that R1 is at the invoice level, right? And R2 is at the R1 is at the invoice level and R2 is at the payments level. The same thing R1 and R2 we see here. Now, if as I mentioned before that I want to like post this invoice with withholding tax at the invoice level. So what I'm going to do is that I want to delete this line. Moment I'm deleting this line, which means that that which indicates the system or from the system to process the invoice with withholding tax at the invoice level. All right. So I hit enter and I do a simulation. So here, if you see that ABC and company, so the rent account is debited with 50,000 and ABC and company is only getting 45,000, and the TDS on rent account is there is a 5,000 debited there, which we would subsequently render to the government. So this is one part or one way of handling withholding tax. So I'm going to post this, right? The other way is at the payment level, which I'm going to show. So let me post another invoice. This was never posted, and this error message I'm receiving, but never mind, I've already shown this to you. uh, Let me, okay. So guys, you have already seen how to post an invoice with the WHT withholding tax at the invoice level. Though for some system glitch it was never posted, but never mind. We at least know how it happens. So let me post another invoice, and this time I'm going to post it, process it at the process of WHT at the payment level. So this time I'm going to process 1 lakh, and since I'm going to post it at a payment level, so the entire 1 lakh would be shown in the invoice level. So again, rent payment with WHT on payment. Now I'm going to select rent here, and then I'm going to select start here, and then plus here, and then I'm going to hit enter, and then I'll go to withholding tax, and this time I'm going to delete R1, which will prompt the system to process this 1 lakh or 100,000 at the payment level, right? So I'm going to simulate this. See, the entire 1 lakh has come. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you, and I'm going to post this. Hopefully this time it will get posted, hopefully. And so now I'm going to handle this at a payment level. So how to do that? I will type /n f dash 53. All right. So I will post this, and then everything is there, and then I'll say document here is um, I'll say WHT on payment. and then I'll put this in the text as well, and then account I'll take cash. Then we take cash, and then the amount I'll say I'll just keep 1 as of now, and I'll change it eventually. And then account is this is my vendor account, all right, and right. So that's it, and then what I'll do is that I believe I have updated everything. Let me also give the value date, though it is not a mandatory, but let me still give, and then process open item. All right. Now, if you see that this is 1 lakh, right? And so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to deselect all. So I'm going to block like this, and then I will deactivate everything. So this makes everything 0. All right. And then what I'll do is that I will select this. I'll select this 1 lakh. This is our invoice, so we have to pay this. So I'll select this. I will activate this. See, what has happened is that this 90,000, this is 1 lakh. But why we see this 90,000? Because 10,000 is deducted at the payment level at the WHT. Because if you remember that while processing the invoice, we have actually mentioned, we have actually taken off R1 and kept R2 as a WHT code, which is prompting the system to process the WHT at the payment level and not at the invoice level, right? So with this, I'll go to document overview, and then I'll go here and I'll just put asterisk here, which will pull the same amount, and then I'll again go back to the process open item. So see, this 90,000, both is 90,000, not assigned is 0, right? And if you go to the withholding tax tab, you will see that withholding tax is 10,000. So this way the system is actually deducting 10,000 from the payment. Basis the withholding tax code that we have populated at the invoice level, which is R2, right? Now if we go and if we post the invoice, now let's see what we have posted. Sorry. See, 1 lakh is posted against ABC company, and ABC and the cash is going out low 90,000, and 10,000 is going on TDS on rent. This 10,000 is has to be submitted to the government. So this is how we posted WHT at the invoice level and at the payment level. I hope you like this video. If you like this video, please click on the like icon and share with all your friends. And if you are yet to subscribe the channel, please subscribe the channel. Thank you.